So here we are the next day, the pentimento is dry and it looks great. So our next step is going to be laying out our graphic. Now what I've designed is a circular graphic to highlight the courtyard, which is their large entertaining area. We're going to be infilling with amber here, and the band itself will be a deep chocolate. But in order to lay out this circular band, we're going to need a trick of the trade, and that's going to be half-inch PVC tubing. Half-inch PVC tubing is easily bendable and creates a very smooth line to follow with our saw cutting. In order to create this fluid circle, we connect 4 to 5 sections of half-inch PVC tubing. Once the layout is visually correct, we will use soapstone to chalk out these lines. We've decided that we want our band to be 12 inches. We now measure 12 inches and set the PVC accordingly. Soapstone leaves a white visible line that can be followed to saw cut this band. We are using a 4.5-inch diamond blade on an angle grinder to freehand this smooth arc. Remember, always wear protective gear, ears, eyes, and a respirator. In order to minimize the dust, we're following the grinder with our shop vac. Once the saw cutting is complete, we sand our entire floor using 120 or 220 grit screens. This will add to the natural look of the floor, as well as remove any imperfections left behind from troweling. We then vacuum our floor using the same dry vac, but now with a felt attachment on our wand. The first area we will color is the chocolate band, and to prevent our color from getting into our gray or amber areas, we will mask that area off. Here's a trick. We start by masking a 1/2 inch back from the saw cut with our masking gun, and follow it with a row of just blue tape, working the edge into the saw cut to ensure a tight bond with the blue tape and our floor. I like to use a quarter to work the blue tape into the joint. We are now adding additional protection by taping red rosin paper over the plastic and taping it to the blue tape. I've found that by applying red rosin paper over the plastic, any excess stain or dye absorbs into this layer, but will not penetrate below the blue tape or plastic. We are now ready to start mixing our stain. We have chosen a diluted ebony stain as our base coat for this band, at a ratio of 1 part stain to 5 parts water. We first add our water to the sprayer and then add the appropriate amount of ebony by measuring the stain using a cup with 1 ounce markings on the side. Now here's one of those tricks that I've learned over the last 10 years. When you want to create a really unique, heavy mottled look, what we use is sweeping compound. The sweeping compound is being used to create a resist in the band. This is going to create a very unique, heavily mottled color throughout this deep chocolate band. Where this loosely broadcasted sweeping compound is, no stain will adhere, which is the premise of a resist. So where there is no sawdust, the stain will be applied. These areas will stain very deeply and dark. Using circular motions with the wand, flood the area to create an even, uniform coverage of stain. We work up to the edge, making sure not to miss any spots along the way. Once dry, 20 minutes up to an hour later, we'll sweep it to the side, and then we will apply our second coat of ebony stain. This stain is only sprayed on, it's not scrubbed like a traditional stain method. Work it up to the edge and use circular motions in the staining process. We don't want this stain to puddle, but we want to give it a good uniform coat. Now that the band is dry, we can mask and protect that area to stain the interior arc with amber. Remember to work the tape into the joint to ensure a clean color separation. The same process of plastic and blue tape is used here, and the seams in the plastic are taped to prevent the stain from traveling between the layers of plastic. Our amber has been diluted at a ratio of 1 part stain to 2 parts water. This will create a rich amber color. In this traditional staining method, we will spray the stain, scrub it, and then layer a second coat of stain on top. Remember to use a firm bristled broom, and always remember to wear your protective gloves, booties, and a respirator. Now after we've scrubbed that first coat in, a second coat of stain will be applied directly on top. And what this does is it helps the broom marks dissipate. It lays the stain down uniformly. And once complete, we run a rag along the edge of the tape to help prevent the stain from bleeding underneath the tape. As the stain dries and the reaction nears completion, we see the color begin to develop. Now that the amber stain is completely dry, we will remove the residue created from that chemical reaction. And I like to use the same biodegradable detergent to remove this residue. I liberally apply the water and detergent to the area and mop around in the larger areas. A buffer can be used to help lift this residue in larger spaces. Here we will just be mopping and then vacuuming up the residue. We now get to see the rich amber for the first time, and we'll continue to rinse this with biodegradable detergent and then again with just water. Once that's done, we'll remove the plastic to expose the deep chocolate band that we had stained earlier. Here, we're going to be pulling the plastic and then using nothing more than a bucket and a sponge to rinse this. Here, we get to see our deep chocolate for the first time. And this residue is rinsed. The deep, heavily mottled band is now exposed. We're using the same technique of rinsing this area as we did in the larger area, but we're just doing it with a bucket and a sponge instead of a mop and a bucket and a vacuum. If you do get some bleed through from the stain, we use a product that's gelled acid. It's Gel-Tec to lift the stain without damaging the topping. We brush the gelled acid onto the area and let sit for a couple of minutes and then rinse with water. As you can see, the stain lifts easily. Since the entire floor is not receiving a stain treatment, we will spray water over the floor to hydrate this topping. Hydration of the topping helps it to gain strength, and a liberal coat of water sprayed uniformly over the slab once or twice is all you need for that.